Time to conclude another Halloween season with one final review. A final review that I have been waiting to talk about all month. A movie that technically doesn't count as a horror film, and technically doesn't even count as a monster movie. But it's such an amazing film that it still technically counts in the horror genre, so I think I'm allowed to give it a little bit of leeway. Not to mention it is Halloween, so I wanted to do something fun. Because we can't just end this marathon on a piece of crap, now can we? No. We need to end this on a bona fide classic. So, with my fedora and psycho mask in hand, welcome back to Animation Station. Welcome to the grand finale, our Halloween special for this year's 31 Days of Horror, Monster-Mania. Now, the movie we are reviewing for this Halloween special technically isn't even a monster movie. It's more atmospheric than anything else. But it's such an amazing film that I have fallen in love with since I first saw it back in 2021 after spending a couple years just hearing a little bit about it from, Cinemassacre's Monster Madness. So, because of that, I've always been curious to check it out for myself, and in 2021 I finally did just that on Halloween night, believe it or not, right after rewatching Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, the original Halloween, Night of the Living Dead, all the stuff, the essentials, the essential collection that I rewatch on Halloween every single year. Once all that was done, I went straight into The Old Dark House, which thankfully was on Peacock, because unfortunately I don't have the physical version yet. And once I saw it, damn, I was so immersed that it was to the point of unsettling. Now, yes, this movie isn't really scary, especially by today's standards, because there's no gore, there's no brutality, there's no, on-screen violence or anything like that until, maybe the very end, but even then, it barely even counts as that. This is a film all about the atmosphere. And that's probably the biggest reason why I adore this film so much, because instead of being more like a traditional horror film and relying on a big scary monster or a high body count or jump scares or anything like that, this is a movie that gets its creepiness off of nothing more than its own atmosphere. And let me tell you, that atmosphere, especially if you're watching it alone in the dark, is very damn effective. So, join me on All Hallows Eve as we take a look at a forgotten classic starring Boris Karloff and Ernest Thesiger. Yes, Ernest Thesiger, 3 years before he became Dr. Pretorius in Bride of Frankenstein. And speaking of Bride of Frankenstein, this is also directed by James Whale, the same guy that made the first 3 Frankenstein films and The Invisible Man. It's called The Old Dark House. It came out in 1932, the exact same year as Boris Karloff's The Mummy. And this is one of my absolute favorite horror films. I'm not even going to mince words with you here. I adore this film, plain and simple. If you want my recommendation of whether or not to go see this film, the answer is yes. If you have not seen this movie yet, you need to. It is the perfect watch for Halloween. Just put it on your TV, have all the lights out, except maybe a candle or a jack-o'-lantern or something like that towards you. But aside from that, little to no room in the house, and just immerse yourself in this movie's incredible atmosphere. Because the whole majority of this movie, you hear this storm of hail and thunder raging on outside the estate as everyone's inside taking shelter. And because it goes throughout the entire movie, you're completely immersed. And again, that's where the atmosphere comes into play, because the atmosphere in this movie is so good that James Rolfeson Massacre considers this to be one of the best movies of the golden age of horror. So, yeah, Needless to say, there's a good bit to talk about, even though I am keeping it spoiler free because I won't dare spoil the twist of this movie. Because this movie's twist, it is bonkers, it is out of nowhere, and it is insane in all the best ways. So, without further ado, here is my spoiler free, but very, very positive review for The Old Dark House, and why I think it is one movie that you absolutely need to check out this Halloween if you haven't seen it. Here we go. And also, it's free on Peacock, so you have no excuse. Yes, this is not a Universal horror film, and has pretty much no connection to it besides cast members and the director. And it's not even a monster movie in the slightest, outside of, Boris Karloff playing Morgan, the butler. But even then, he's barely in the movie and barely does anything. So, I wouldn't even call it a monster movie. But ever since I first saw it a few years ago after watching James Rolfe Cinemassacre talk about it for years prior from my annual usual rewatches of Monster Madness every year, I just fell in love with it. Yes, it's a very simple premise on paper. A group of people seeking shelter from a storm are invited into the Femme family estate for gin and potatoes. And that's pretty much it. But the wild directions it goes as they discover more about the family's dark secrets makes it anything but straightforward. But the real stars of this one that flash brighter than the lightning of the storm raging outside are director James Whale, who continues to prove himself as one of the best horror directors of all time, the delightful, preposterous performance of Ernest Thesiger as Horace Femme, who is both creepy and welcoming in all the best ways, which he would put to great use later as Dr. Pretorius, and its absolutely phenomenal atmosphere, with the storm continuing on in the background outside of the estate throughout the entire movie. And you hear it quite vividly throughout the entire movie, too. It's not like how you just see, like, raindrops on a window in the background as other people are talking. No. You hear that freaking thing storming and raging the entire film, despite all the characters being inside. And it just makes it all the more immersive, giving both incredible immersion to the audience and keeping the tone inviting yet unsettling, which is the best way to describe this movie. It's inviting because the Femmes do try to give these travelers their hospitality with the circumstances given, but at the same time, something feels a little bit off. Like, you can't really tell what it is right away, but something just feels off here. Something feels unwelcoming and very quite unsettling. And once you find out what it is, your jaw's going to be on the floor. Then you have the creepiest scene of all with Elspeth Dudgeon's hauntingly morbid monologue as Roderick Femme, leading into the big final twist in the movie that I will not dare spoil. Seriously, this movie's twist is one of the best in the genre. Sure, it does suck that Boris Karloff is wasted as a mute servant. Yeah, him as Morgan, he barely does anything. But even then, he still does a good job and is such a minor cog in the overall machine of this movie that I can very easily forgive it. Because unlike most movies that waste Karloff, here he is a side character. He's not the main star, even if he does have top billing in some later releases of the movie. But no, he's not the main character of this movie. The main characters here are Melvyn Douglas, Boris Karloff, and Ernest Thesiger. Those three are the stars of the movie, and Boris Karloff is here as a side character for marquee value. So, because of that, and because he is such a minor role, it's not as frustrating as some other movies that waste Karloff in other instances, which we may or may not talk about next year. It depends on the schedule. This is simply one of those must-watch classics of the genre, and is arguably one of Whale's best films alongside the original Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man. I've made sure to watch it every Halloween ever since that first watch in 2021, alongside Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, the original Night of the Living Dead, Trick or Treat, the OG Halloween, and Freddy vs. Jason. And I seriously cannot recommend it highly enough. Sure, it is more atmospheric rather than visual in terms of its horror, which is going to put some people off that are expecting like a splatterfest or something like that. But it is one of the best in that category of being atmospheric, the atmospheric horror subgenre. This is one of the best in that category. Absolutely check it out and have an awesome Halloween full of treats and harmless tricks. And maybe TP a house or two if they decide to give you apples, because that is just unfestive bullshit. Anyway, Final Verdict for the Old Dark House, if you can't already tell, is an 11 out of 10. One of the best, most atmospheric, most immersive horror films you will ever watch, and even if it's not scary visually, it does an amazing job making you feel unsettled from start to end. And that's it. That's all I've got for this 31 Days of Horror. That is all I've got for our annual horror marathon, and that's going to end our Halloween special for 2025. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed going through all these movies with me. I've always wanted to review the classic Universal monsters, so doing it this year was definitely a bucket list item checked off that I'm glad I've checked off. And getting to check out some of the more modern horror was pretty cool too. And of course, getting to end it with one of my favorite horror films ever. So, I don't really know what else there is to say. Sure, there were a few bumps in the road. Sure, there were a few movies that were definitely below the bar. But when this franchise was great, it was really great, and it was a lot of fun to talk about. Not to mention being more in-depth and analytical was a nice change of pace from my usual reviews. And, I mean, I had to end it with this film, man. Like, since I already reviewed Trick or Treat, I couldn't think of any other more fitting film to end off this year's 31 Days of Horror than one of the most atmospheric, immersive, entertaining, and rewatchable in the entire genre. Seriously, The Old Dark House is a gem, and if you have not watched it yet, you need to. And the fact that it is so criminally underrated is a cardinal sin. And as for Castlevania-thon, yeah, I kind of fell behind on that one, didn't I? I think I'm just gonna finish off Season 1 of Castlevania Nocturne and just watch Season 2 on my own time and put it in, like, the best or worst TV shows list, because no one's really watching those Castlevania reviews anyway, no matter how much work and effort I put into them, so at this point, it's whatever. So I'll probably finish that by early November, but that's going to do it for our actual main Halloween horror marathon. But I'm not taking this mask off until November 1st. Deal with it. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, what are we going to do for November? Well, it's not going to be very fun. I'm just going to say that. Because it is going to be a pretty painful marathon, and a marathon that I'm using as a big goodbye and screw you to a company that I've had problems with for the past 5 to 10 years now. Because for those of you that don't already know, I'm going to shut off this heater. It is driving me bonkers. Those of you that don't already know, I have constantly bashed and criticized the company known as Disney for a long while now, mostly because of their terrible remakes, their crap legacy sequels, and just their really, really stupid decisions in general. So, I've decided that this year is my last year reviewing new Disney stuff. So, what does that mean? Well, that means it's going to be the last Disney-Vember I'm ever going to do, and it's also going to be my last time talking about Disney. After this, I am boycotting everything the company puts their name on, except for Spider-Man. Spider-Man is the one and only exception, because I can usually expect quality from that at least. And because I really loved Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and I do want to review Season 2 when that comes out. But aside from that, this is my last time reviewing Disney before I boycott them for good, so because of that, I've decided that for this final Disney-Vember, I'm going to I'm gonna do something that I probably should have done a while ago, but feels more relevant now more than ever to do. This final Disney-vember, I'm reviewing all the remakes. All the good remakes that are in the very, very piles of rough. And then trashing and crapping on all the remakes I haven't talked about yet. Yes, I don't want to talk about Snow Shite or Lilo and Shite. Sorry, I need to work on my puns. I don't want to talk about those movies again. Those I already reviewed. Those are done. I don't want to talk about this again. However, there's a grand majority of them that I haven't. So, I can't think of a bigger way to say fuck you and a goodbye to Disney than reviewing their crappiest and worst trend in recent memory. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be all bad. There are a few Disney remakes in there that I actually like Maleficent and Christopher Robin, but they're just simply going to be diamonds in the rough, because I'm also going to be reviewing all those movies that are so bad. But the good news is that it's also going to encompass an updated Pixar movie tier list at the end of the month, as well as my final new review for Disney with Zootopia 2. So there'll still be some quality, but it's going to be a very rough month. But that's not all we're doing this month either, because we got a little something this year to take care of as well. Because for those of you that don't already know, a certain show just came back. So yeah, instead of waiting months and months like I did last time, we are having our second Has-Been a Telethon next month. We are going to be reviewing all the episodes of Has-Been Hotel Season 2 as they come out. So, stay tuned for that. That's going to be really fun as well. Yes, I'm reviewing it in timely fashion this time, unlike last time where I dragged my feet and waited until an entire month and the entire show was out. So, but that is all for November. So, until then, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a happy Halloween, Mischief Night, Devil's Night, Festival of Samhain, whatever the hell you want to call it. Hope you get to eat lots of incredible candy, including, yes, candy corn. I like candy corn. Sue me. I'm an old fart. I like my candy corn. So, I'm going to be chowing on this. While the rest of you get to chow down your Halloween candy and watch the movies you want and, of course, listen to the music that you want as well, because, well, it's Halloween, and in the words of the late actor who played Sheriff Brackett in the original Halloween, everyone's entitled to one good scare. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for making this one of the most successful Halloween marathons I've done since I started this channel about 5 or 6 years ago. And until we meet again, have an incredible spooky season, have a spectacular, spooktacular Halloween, and I'll see you in November for Has-Been a Telethon Chapter 2, and Disney-vember 3, Corporate Calamity. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.